He was talking in his so-called manifesto. The man who tried to attack the president talked about no longer being able to stomach what he was witnessing in American politics, essentially. Now, I want to make it really clear. In asking whether Donald Trump and other members of his cabinet have contributed to this atmosphere of violence and some actions of violence, I am not suggesting for a second that they are not victims of violence, because Donald Trump has, of course, been a victim of violence, and I wouldn't want to see a hair on his head damaged in an act of assassination or anything like that, or his wife, or any of his colleagues, anybody in that room. But this is what the manifesto said. It was long, but this is part of it. I am no longer willing to permit a paedophile, rapist and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. That's the part that Nora read out. I was no longer willing a long time ago, but this is the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it. So that's revealing that he'd been thinking about killing him for some time. While I'm discussing this, I'll also go over my expected rules of engagement, probably in a terrible format, but I'm not military, so too bad. So he's starting to outline what he intended to do. So now we know what he intended to do, because we've seen the events of Saturday night. And I was just looking through the history, really, of political violence in America. I mean, it goes way, way back. It's not new. I'm not suggesting for a second that Donald Trump is responsible for some new sort of incarnation of politics in America. It's haunted American politics. It's stalked American politics almost from its very beginning. But if you look at recent events, and I'm not just focusing on Donald Trump or the Republicans being responsible for this atmosphere either, I think it's sort of a politician using judicious language is just always wise, isn't it? You can use blunt language, and you can use sharp language, and you can use, just plain language to get your point across. But the idea that you can then just start to pump up that atmosphere of violence and antipathy, I think is dangerous. I really do. I mean, possibly because I broadcast every day, and sometimes people try to take me down that road, and I resist it because it's dangerous. It also doesn't get us anywhere in a conversation. But look at this. In America, you've had the Capitol riots. That was an attempted coup, in my view. You might say it differently, but I think it was clearly violent, and it was an attempted coup. You've got, and again, these are just listed as they are. ICE agents killed 2 citizens in broad daylight. We saw it, Renee Good, Alex Pretty. In a political switch around, you've had Charlie Kirk's assassination. These are all abominations. I don't care which side is doing the killing or the ranting. They're all abominations. Charlie Kirk assassination, Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, who was murdered in cold blood on the streets, and a man called Luigi Mangione is on trial for that. Nancy Pelosi's husband was beaten to a pulp with a hammer in his own home by somebody who didn't like Nancy Pelosi's politics. This weekend was the 3rd attempt on Donald Trump. Before that, you had Representative Steve Scalise surviving a shooting in 2017. I mean, again, plenty of examples of political violence predate Donald Trump. So I'm not saying he is the singular cause for this. I'm not. But how could I? It would just be clearly not true. But even as recently as March of this year, on the war in Iran, we just keep bumming our little hearts out, he says gleefully. You never know with Iran, because we negotiate with them, and then we always have to blow them up. Pete Hegseth, he was under threat at the weekend in that attack, or that attempted attack. Pete Hegseth squirmed in pleasure. We saw it. We reported on it. We heard it together here on the programme in early March, describing death and destruction from the sky all day long, with a grin on his face. This was never meant to be this is still Hegseth. This was never meant to be a fair fight. It's not a fair fight. We're punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be. These aren't judicious comments by politicians. And Donald Trump, just the last one on what he said, again, in relation to the war in Iran. They've been killing innocent people all over the world for 47 years. He's right. And now I, as the 47th President of the United States, am killing them. He's right, he did. What a great honour it is to do that, he said. Again, just the crudity of it, the crudity of the language attached to the killing. It's clear that they call it diphomism. So you use a euphemism when you want it. And Lord knows American politicians over the years and presidents over the years have used euphemism to describe some of their more aggressive acts around the world. Donald Trump doesn't bother. He just goes straight for its opposite, diphomism. It just violates social norms and taboos, and which is what Donald Trump has always tried to do. So, is he part of the cause? Is he part of the problem when it comes to violence? And again, nobody should be physically harmed or hurt or certainly killed for their political views or even their political actions. He in this manifesto, this guy went on to say, administration officials are targets, prioritised from the highest ranking to the lowest. This is his manifesto plan as he set it out. Secret Service men and women are targets. And one of them was shot, thankfully not killed. Hotel security, not targets, if at all possible, unless they shoot at me. Capitol Police, same as hotel security. National Guard, same as hotel security. Hotel employees, not targets at all. Guests, not targets at all. In order to minimise casualties, I will also be using buckshot rather than slugs, less penetration through walls. I mean, the thought that's gone into this manifesto of killing, of political killing, is appalling. I would still go through most everyone here to get to the targets if it were absolutely necessary. And there you have it. He's a maniac, prepared to kill every row of probably 2,500 people in that room to get to. I mean, he wouldn't have had the time to do that, but that was his plan. He'd go to any lengths in that room to get to Trump and the other people at the top table, which included, in those top tables just in front of the main podium, included several pregnant women. So he didn't care. He just wanted to kill them all. So it's appalling. Please don't mistake my question for thinking any of this is justified. And I'm not saying that the atmosphere of political violence is only contributed to by Donald Trump. It isn't. I mean, look at the Charlie Kirk assassination, just beyond belief. The Nancy Pelosi attack, beyond belief. But where's this all going to take us? Where's it all going to take us? Donald Trump, he's about to have, again, we'll talk about it more a little later, he's about to have important meetings and tea and whatever with our king. Is he a cause of the political violence that he at the weekend and others were on the receiving end of? 0345 60609. Matt has called from Matt. Let's talk to Peter in Oxford. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Sheila. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, what's on your mind?
So you're asking if Donald Trump is the sort of contributing factor to this violence, but I would say he's more of a symptom than a cause.
Okay.
Although he is fanning the flame. But obviously what I would want to say is that people can see that not just nationally, but globally, we live in a corrupt world with a corrupt economic global elite. And they basically do whatever the hell they want, and there's no legal ramifications for the things that they do. They're making our lives worse constantly.
Who are we talking about?
I'm talking about, you could probably put the blame at all of them. I mean, obviously Benjamin Netenyahu and Donald Trump are directly doing it right now. But if you look
in what way?
just
explain to me in what way.
By starting a war in Iran and making all of our bills go up, and potentially leading to starvation of millions of people if we don't get fertilizers in the ground quickly enough.
Okay, and who else is on your list?
Well, I'd say it goes back as far as people like Tony Blair. Tony Blair is never going to face justice. That man should be in prison for the rest of his life. He killed 1 million Iraqis by his decisions. And George Osborne, his austerity measures killed 130,000 people. He should be in prison for the rest of his life. Never face legal ramifications. And this is the problem. These elite, they do these things. There's no legal recourse for ordinary people. They see this, and they know that these people will never face justice. And under these circumstances, yes, people who have nothing to lose will take matters into their own hands. And I can tell you, if I was a single man with no children and no responsibilities I have, I might even consider going after these people because they deserve it. And there's no legal recourse to it. So I don't know, would you kill Hitler if you had the chance? Some of these people, Benjamin Netanyahu is basically Hitler about modern day.
Well, Peter, just a minute. He isn't, just so you know. He just isn't. I mean, you know, I really don't want to go into the deep historical differences there, and you can have as much antipathy towards Benjamin Netanyahu as you like. And again, just because I have to do this, I'm a journalist, the figures of how many civilians died in the Iraq war ranges from anything between 100,000 and 600,000 in official statistics. Again, I don't know, but neither do you. The question of, I'm more in, rather than quibble over what you said about Benjamin Netanyahu, even though I disagree with it, I'm more interested in asking you, what the hell are you thinking saying you'd kill them?
Well, I wouldn't, because I have children and, I have responsibilities outside of that. But
if you didn't, you said you would.
If I was at the end of my life and I had nothing to lose, and I saw these people who continuously do these things which make lives of ordinary people worse over and over and over again, and the legal system protects them under those circumstances, there is absolutely justification for political violence. Would you
include the Ayatollahs and the IRGC on your list?
Well, I mean, they're not personally affecting me.
They are.
And they're also not my responsibility, whereas someone like Tony Blair, who's the leader of my country...
And Benjamin Netanyahu is your responsibility, is he?
Well, have you heard of the Balfour Declaration?
I have indeed, yeah.
The fact that Britain gave the Jews the right to return to Israel?
I have indeed.
Even though, by the way, in 1917, Palestine was under the control of the Ottoman Empire, so there was no legal justification.
Well, there's a whole other conversation to be had about the behaviour of the Ottoman Empire. Peter, oh God, you're giving yourself away left, right and centre here. You pick and choose the political leaders that you would murder, and you conveniently ignore the ones who are currently murdering their own people. And we could look at the Ottoman Empire for a good few years. I don't have a good few years with you now, Peter, but we could look at the Ottoman Empire and see how many, not just Jews, but certainly Jews they killed and expelled from their countries over the years in the Middle East. This is why this colonial settler nonsense is not true, simply because history shows it's not. Are there modern day settlers? Yes, there are, of course there are. But the idea that the Jews had no place in the Middle East historically is historically not true. But it's interesting, it's telling to me, Peter, that you demurred in your killing ambitions when I asked you about the Ayatollahs. 132, Joshua in Birmingham, hello.
Hi, Sheila. So the short answer to your question, in my opinion, is yes. I think it's quite clear that since he came onto the scene, I mean, we already know that US politics was divided, and it has been, since forever. Yeah. But I think that if you look at the increase in the sort of, or the decrease, the devaluation and the lack of quality of the rhetoric since he came on the scene, there's no doubt that him and the whole MAGA movement have been responsible for this, and I think it's been orchestrated. I think that Vladimir Putin is known for wanting to sow discord in the West as a way of destabilizing us. As we talked about before a few weeks ago, we know. But
I don't think he needs Donald Trump to do that. I think he does that with his bot farms and stuff. Doesn't he?
My point is that the strategy. I rang you up a couple of weeks ago and we talked about Trump and Putin and all the rest of it. So that is a strategy taken from Putin's Russia. It's a strategy to destabilize nations by causing fights and divisions and opening those sores and wounds inside the country. So everyone talks about him not starting any wars before the last election, but what they miss is that he started a war in his own country, a civil war, an online predominantly civil war that fomented hate. And we are where we are today. And he was January the 6th riot.
Yeah. I mean, that was stunning. I wouldn't call it a civil war at this stage, but it's a social war, which brings me to social media, because I think social media is massively playing its part here. And he, maybe to people's surprise, is is a genius user of social media. By the way, that's not a compliment. It's to him. There's a brilliant piece in the Times recently by Matthew Said where he describes how effective Donald Trump is at the various things he wants to affect. It's not universal, not always by any means, but and again, it's not a compliment to say somebody is effective. It's just a fact that he clearly is on so many levels. But he might argue, how about this, Joshua? He might argue, I'm not doing it to foment violence. I'm doing it to break up a cosy consensus that is getting America nowhere. That's his argument, really.
I mean, well, this is the thing. Anyone can say anything now, and it can pass off as a credible argument. The media have facilitated, the media has facilitated a both sides environment where you can pretend that two things have equal weight. So anyone can say anything. So he could say that, but at the end of the...
Not really. Not every bit of the media is like that.
No, not every bit of the media. But
social media is.
Well, so American media is very, very polarised. I watch that very, very closely. But social media, who owns social media? Who are they in bed with? Who are they friends with? They're all friends with him. So X has been turned into an absolute right-wing, far-right hate sewer. I think we can all agree on that. And if we don't agree on that, we're lying.
Well, hang on. Not just far-right. It's a sewer, full stop.
Yeah, fine.
What's on it?
But I would say that given that the person who owns it is predominantly associated with the far-right, and there's much evidence to say that, I'll just say the Nazi salute. Let's just call it that. Let's just put it there. Gave Nazi salute. So I'd associate it more with the far-right than the far-left. But I accept that there are extremists across Twitter. But when I put it on there, when I put it on my screen, all I see is anti-black, anti-Jew, and that's predominantly, in my view, has its roots in the far right. We can argue and we can, again, it's the both sides, because, you can easily create a million bots that push the other side to make it look fair.
But Joshua, I can tell you from personal experience, they're not just bots. I have a lot of stuff thrown at me on social media that's aggressive and unpleasant and untrue, and it is not just from right-wing people by any means. I
don't dispute that. But if you're receiving it from the left, then what?
I'm receiving it from all sides. One day I'm a right-wing fascist. The next day I'm a lefty, liberal, lovey who's going to send this country to hell in a handcart like I've got any power to do that,
Well, with the greatest love and respect to you, Sheila, anybody that's calling you a lefty, lovey liberal doesn't understand politics. Because I wouldn't put you in that category at all.
What would you put? What do you hear, Joshua? Let's test because we're both having a kind of mutual theory off here, aren't we? So what do you hear?
I've listened to you for quite a long time, and I would say that there was once a time that I would have considered you very, very just straight down the middle, centrist. I do think, and I say this with the greatest love and respect, you have seemed to veer off into the right a little bit recently. But that's just my view, and I say it with respect.
On particular issues or generally?
I think one of the things that people haven't talked about is how regular folk have been captured by this online world as well. So people that once may have had very sensible views have been embedded in the social media world, and they've started to take on some of those views as well. And I think that we all kind of need to watch our blind spots in that sort of thing.
Of course,
what I will say is, with respect to the Israel thing that you constantly are criticised for, I think it's
not the only thing I'm constantly criticised for.
No, for sure, but that's probably the biggest. I think it needs to be said that, to my mind, as a non-Jewish person, as a non-Israeli, it seems to me like the far right, the global far right, have captured a certain part of the propaganda narrative, and they are using Israel as a conduit. Okay, and I think that, so if you look at Benjamin Netanyahu's government, the people that are propping him up are the far right. The people that are constantly waving the Israeli flag on X, for example, constantly, I see this all the time, are far right figures in the UK.
Sorry, when you say waving the flag, do you mean just having it on their Twitter bio and that kind of thing?
I mean using anti-Semitism as a weapon, or using pro-Israeli or pro-far.
What do you think anti-Semitism is, if not a weapon?
I mean,
against Jews.
All right, let me give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. So if it's a Corbyn that's anti-Semitic, they'll shout from the hills about it. But as soon as Nigel Farage is accused of anti-Semitism, radio silence.
Not radio silence, discussed it at length.
Not from no. I'm not talking about you, though, Sheila. I'm not talking about you.
But I'm not the only one discussing it at length. It's discussed at length. Because bear in mind, a lot of the discussions we have are prompted by the discussions that are being had around us. Online, offline, politicians.
No, I just want to say, I think the far right and the hard right use Israel as a weapon. I think they do.
I know. I'm laughing, Josh. I don't doubt it. But
I can give you.
Have you seen the hard left on that issue? Have you seen the hard left on that issue?
Yeah, they're morons. I don't dispute that. I'm not disputing that. But they're not using the Israeli cause as a weapon to beat other religions with.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. I don't doubt you're right about elements of the far right as well. Of course you are. But the idea that is a uniquely right-wing problem, both online and offline, is for the birds, Joshua. It is. And by the way, it's been really, really lovely talking to you. And the reason I asked you about me wasn't so I could indulge myself for 4 minutes about how I come across. I just think it's an example. Mine and Joshua's conversation there is an example of the back and forth on issues and how we can conduct ourselves. And I think we both conducted ourselves very well in that conversation without threatening each other. Yeah, we did call someone morons, but I let him off because I agreed with him. It's almost 2 o'clock.